Hello, everyone. This is Chatla Dinkoy, CEO and founder of The Repositioning Expert. I'm here with another edition of my podcast, The Naked Marketing, where we talk about honest and authentic mistakes that our guests have made, and hopefully they'll resound and help people who are listening. My wonderful guest today is Angela Edwards. Hello, Angela.
Hello.
You look like you have such a lovely office in the background.
Kind of having my Zen office.
I know, I love it. I love these backgrounds. So tell us who you help and what you do.
Well, I take owners from being overwhelmed, overworked, and undervalued to becoming strategic, productive, and profitable.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really that business owners, executives, they get so involved and so busy in working in their business that they don't have time to work on their business. And they get bogged down with wearing too many hats, trying to grow their business and deliver their end product. I went through that when I started my business, and I started out in project management. And I realized this really applies to business owners. So I can show them how to avoid pitfalls, really ignite a spark and let their sparkle shine through.
So were you in the corporate world before in project management, and then you decided to leave like I did, or how were you born an entrepreneur?
I like to say a little bit of both because I come from an entrepreneurial family.
Nice.
And I decided to take the corporate path in project management, got into IT with project management. Then I realized I really liked doing consulting. And then I realized, well, I should start my own consulting business providing project management services in IT, which was where I started way back in 2007. Sometimes it shocks me to say 2007. But then I realized as I started doing that, I had people come to me with small businesses and said, really, you can solve this problem for us or my friend, or you've done such a great job here. I want to recommend you to do this. And I realized there was a whole nother market with small businesses that had nothing to do with IT. So I really started studying that and realizing all of the things that I had learned from bringing my business forward and getting to that point, and moved to actually only working with small businesses, stepping out of the IT space and leaving that behind.
So what is the most expensive problem you're solving for these guys? Is it the systems in the background? Is it, client acquisition? Is it client retention? Like, what is it that what project management does for them helps them solve the most expensive?
I say it's all about scale.
Okay.
And typically what my clients are facing is that they've gotten to this point and they have decided that they want to grow from the point that they're at to the next point. And in their minds, all they have to do is work harder and increase the numbers. And that's not necessarily true. I always say what got you to the point you're at now is not going to get you to the next point where you want to be. So taking a step back and looking at that and looking at all of the things that they're doing and looking at what it's going to take to get to that next point and what they're going to have to change in their business and with their processes and their structure so that they can get to that point and get there successfully, meaning that they are ready for that growth when it happens. A lot of times businesses grow and they can't handle the growth.
So, that's such a good point. Now, is there a success story that comes to mind of who you've helped that's gone from like disaster to, through your help, this Phoenix Rising story?
I have a business and I'm trying to kind of strip out some of the things about the business, not to be so obvious, to keep confidentiality here. But they came to me a few years ago and they said, I'm killing myself here. I'm thinking about selling my business because I can't get over this hump. I'm working all of the time. And for some reason, I don't think it's there. I don't think that it's possible to grow beyond where my business is now without completely sacrificing myself and my life. in the process.
Yeah.
And what we did was we started out looking at what their goals were for growth and why, so that we could both have this understanding of why they want to go in the direction they want to go.
Mhm.
And we had to kind of bump back a little bit from that and realize maybe some of these need a little bit of tweaking based on the why. And then we started to put together plans of how they're going to get to each point, what the metric is that they're measuring it, which for project managers and executives, everybody knows what key performance indicators are, or KPIs. Putting that together and then putting the plan together for meeting each one of those targets, so that we know if we're on track and meeting the milestones at every step of the way. So that it became less of, I don't know when I'm going to get there, to more of, okay, I see the path, I see where we're going, I see how far we are away from the next milestone. Things are ahead or behind, and maybe we need to make some adjustments, and really pulling that together. And over a 2-year span of working with them, got them above and beyond where they wanted to be when we initially started. And the owner did not feel like they didn't have a life. They felt like they were actually, it's that old phrase, work smarter, not harder. And they felt like they were actually being even more productive and taking their company in the direction that they wanted to, while they were still able to have the life that they want.
That's amazing. So tell me, like, who is the ideal target size for you?
I always say it's really about employee size. And I have some, what I call micro businesses under 10 employees.
Mm.
And I go up anywhere to about 50 to 75 employees. That's kind of, I have two distinct groups in that. So the very small micro, and then the smaller business.
That's great. Well, even to be, as you say, micro, they have to be making, I guess, close to $500,000 to $1 million to be able to afford to pay, like,
Yes.
10 people, right? So that's great. So tell us, where do you meet your clients? So it's a marketing show. So tell us how you get to market to them and how they come to find you.
And very interesting in that I consider myself to be fortunate and unfortunate at the very same time, because when I started my business, my clients were coming in as referrals, and they were coming in so quickly. I felt like I hit a gold mine.
Nice.
And of course, in the back of my mind, I'm always thinking nothing is ever permanent.
Sure.
You're going to have to change your strategy. Markets change. And the other part of me was like, oh, don't worry about it. We've got this, just keep going and keep expanding and keep growing. And that was great until I really shifted into the small business, and I shifted my market. And I had to shift how I was thinking about my marketing things. I actually had to put forth marketing effort.
Mm.
And so that was the first big marketing shift for me.
Mm.
And really, okay, now what do I need to do, and how do I need to do it? And referrals are great, but you also need several marketing streams for your business to maintain. And so that was kind of my first big challenge in marketing.
Yeah. So how are they coming to you now?
So now I have a variety of things that I do. I go out and I speak to various organizations and raise awareness. So I liken that to hang out where my ideal folks are, where the people that I serve, where do they hang out? So I speak at various events and associations. The other is locally, I have started teaching some small workshops and helping out in the area. So that's getting me the local interest and raising awareness at that point. I've also started with something new that I've started doing is working my online presence. And I now have some folks on my team helping me with social media marketing that we're just now starting, which seems kind of odd to talk about it in this day and age, that we're just now starting social media marketing.
Depends on if your target is there or not. It really isn't strange. So don't worry about it. If your target is
Right.
there, they're there. If they're not, they're like my target, multi-million-dollar CEOs are not trolling social media, they're barely present on LinkedIn. So don't feel bad about it. But that's amazing. How have you found that whole speaking circuit since the beginning of COVID? I mean, for me, it's disappeared. And it's slowly virtually coming back, but the conversion rates are like a tenth of what they were in person. How are you finding it?
It's similar. So before I went, I was speaking a lot.
Mm.
And this goes back about 5 years. It seemed like I was always speaking. And then I decided about 2 years ago that I would take some time off from speaking. I was speaking so much. And I said, well, I'm going to take a little time off, take a year off, deal with some other things that I've got going on. And I was speaking very little. And then, of course, COVID hit right when I'm starting to ramp up with speaking.
The universe heard you.
Yeah. And so I'm always like, okay, well, that's okay. We'll go ahead and shift and change focus. And I started reaching out to people that I knew who were having events, and they were starting to have them virtually, and they were trying to figure out, how do we work in this virtual world?
Yeah.
How am I going to have events? It's not a one-to-one from being in person. We don't do the same things to being virtual. And I'm finding with the virtual more of late, because I think people are getting very accustomed to it now that we're well over a year into it. I find that virtual means that people on the other end are likely multitasking because they
Yeah.
have to do something, they have an obligation, but they want to hear what's going on and they want to connect with people. So the challenge for me is, how do I gain their attention and hold their attention?
Oh,
And also, know that there might be a little bit of a lull, because not because I don't have their attention from anything that's presented, but because they've received a phone call or an email that they need to address because they are on call, but that still allows them to attend the event. So that, I think, is challenging. I've seen my conversion rates initially, they dropped in the very beginning, and I've seen they've started to come back up the more virtual events that I've done. So I haven't found what to attribute that to. I'm not sure what's going on there, but I'm still looking at it and analyzing it. So it's interesting that you mentioned that.
yeah, that's wonderful. So this brings us to the big naked marketing question of, what was your, biggest mistake or most expensive marketing mistake since, I think you said 2007 that you launched your company?
And since 2007, when I was doing a lot of project management, I mentioned I was fortunate. I had it rolling in, and all I had to do was make sure I had resources, and we did the work. It was great. And then it changed when I shifted focus. And I thought, okay, well, I need to get smart about marketing. So let me go study it, and let me see who the experts are, and let me take lots of classes, participate in things, read. The internet is such a wealth of knowledge, and that can be a double-edged sword. You can read a lot, and you can read a lot of great things and a lot of bad things, and you can become overwhelmed. And in that, I figured all I have to do is take what I've learned, follow the formulas, do the work, check the boxes, and it will get done. And awareness will be there, and people will be interested, and that will be the marketing. And then they'll want to talk to me even more. And what I found was, there was this great disconnect in this. I always felt like I was doing something that someone else told me to do, and it didn't feel authentic. And I think, being a speaker and speaking a lot, if something doesn't feel authentic, people can't relate to it. It comes off as a little bit of, I don't know if you really know what you're talking about, or they kind of get this, there's a mismatch here feeling. So I was feeling that, and I'm pretty sure that my target audience was feeling that. I'd gotten some feedback, from a few folks in there that was kind of pointing in that direction. And I stepped back and I thought about it. And I'm like, these guys, that I've learned all of this stuff from, they're not wrong. They're experts and doing well in their field for a reason. So why isn't this working for me? When I started to think about why isn't it working for me, I kind of had this aha moment that I need to make it mine. I need to make it that it's got my flavor, my personality, my company's flavor and personality in that. And how would this be if I were creating it? So what I did was I stepped back and I kind of did an unthink about what I was thinking about marketing and then, of course, sales. And I realized I was so focused on all of the frameworks, all of the funnels and making sure the funnels were correct. And I needed to think of it more as a framework. And I needed to think of it as outreach versus marketing. Because in my mind, marketing just I wasn't connecting with that word. And that sounds so strange, but it wasn't the word that was working for me. And when I thought about it and changed it to, this is outreach. I'm one of the people in my company who does the outreach. I talk to people. I find out what's going on. And I have a framework for how I talk with them when I go out and I speak with people and how I'm introduced to them, how I meet them, where I meet them, and understanding their concerns. And then where does that take us? I go through the framework and I realize, while these people are great and they're interesting and they definitely need some assistance, they're not the ones that I can serve best. So I have partners that I can refer them to and say, you really need to talk with this person. I hear what you've got going on and you really need to chat with them. So I'm still serving them, but I'm sending them in a different direction. That way that I can focus on when I have those ideal folks, I tell them, I've got some things I really need you to take a look at and let me know how you feel about it so I can bring them further into the marketing process. And then when they're ready, we can talk sales.
That's great. So I think I'm getting clearer because we did talk a little bit earlier about what this, the marketing mistake was. And I think, were you taking online courses?
Yes.
Okay.
And I attended some different things in person and I had a mix of all sorts of things.
But you never had a dedicated one-on-one coach who did a custom strategy for you?
I did toward the end. And that was kind of when I had this shift of, oh my gosh, this is not it. I need to start thinking about this in a different term and moving it toward what I actually do.
Yeah, no, because I was wondering if, because you referred to the word funnels and that's usually used for online funnels and, like the Russell Brunson and he, I learned about online funnels from him, but the disconnect that I see with coaches and consultants like us is that, what you told me, what's working for you more right now is the speaking. So, the in-person speaking or the virtual speaking or teaching. So I think the funnel way is probably designed to intercept them with more passive marketing. And what's working for you is the active marketing of actually being able to touch them with your, wisdom, your knowledge, and your presence and your authority. So there's a huge difference between those two things. And I can understand why one wasn't working, because it didn't work for me and it doesn't work for a lot of people. I can understand if you've got a product that's easy to sell or some service that's easy to understand versus what you and I do is just, it's more, the results that we're selling. It's more the deliverables, and we're positioning ourselves as experts. So for sure. So any parting advice in marketing for our viewers and listeners?
Some of the things that I've learned, I mentioned it earlier, the internet's a big place. Yeah. But to really take what works for you, try it, and find out if a piece of it's not working, what isn't working, and retool that, revisit that. And one of the things for me when I really got into this was I have to get it perfect the first time. There is no second time. It's got to be right the very first time. And in that, I realized that marketing is something that you have to try it out. You have to test it. You have to find out what's not working, why it's not working, retool it, go back, do it again, get more feedback, figure out what works. And then even when it works, just because it works today doesn't mean that that's what's going to work next year. So it's this constant process. So thinking about it instead of in a project management brain of, well, we're one and done and we've checked the box, the project is complete, it's finished, and we don't have to look at it again. This is ongoing operations, and it's something that needs constant care and feeding.
Yeah, that is awesome. So how can people reach you, Angela?
Well, they can reach me through my website, castlethunder.com. I'm also on Facebook at Castle Thunder RVA. Those are the two best places to reach me.
That's perfect. Thanks so much for being a guest.
Thank you so much. I enjoyed it.